Hello, dear friends. We are live with another version of the amazing workshops that we have been doing on Metis, trying to improve our educational content for developers. My name is Victor Munoz. I'm a developer advocate at Metis L2. And today I'm very excited to introduce Billy or Billy Jitsu, who is the DevRel lead at AP3. How are you doing today, Billy?
I'm doing good, man. Good to be here. Excited to get everybody started and let people know and get some feedback to see what's happening in the space. So let's get it started. I'm Billy Jitsu. I'm from API3, developer advocate or dev relations, however you do it. If you have questions, I'm the guy you'll probably interact with most likely. API3 is an Oracle system. So basically we bring data that's off chain, on chain, whether that's a random number or a price feed. So I'm really looking forward to getting a good series going on with you guys about, getting started with that and then kind of building up from there. So it's going to be a new take on how we do workshops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm really looking forward into this. Like, I think it's going to be very useful content for developers in Web3 in general.
Mhm.
We were talking about that before, and I wanted to ask you, like, why or what are like kind of the use cases when you're, in Web3 development that you could use AP3 for?
Oh, well, we're pretty heavy DeFi, right? So borrow lending is probably our bread and butter. So you need a price point for, like the price of Ethereum, right?
Hmm.
Smart contracts don't know the price of anything outside. Like they don't know what it costs on Binance or Coinbase or any other exchange or how people are trading it in different chains. So an Oracle brings that data off chain and then brings it on chain. So then you can deposit your asset and then borrow off against it or, leverage it or use perpetuals or anything like that. So that's heavy. Also, like for different things like people NFTs or like contests, right? Let's say you want to have a game and you always want to keep that price consistent at $50 or something.
Hmm.
Well, the price changes all the time, right? Like ETH is fluctuating from time to time. So if it's going to be $50 all the time, that could be zero point 0.2 ETH one day and it could be zero point 0.02 ETH another day, right? So an Oracle
Right.
helps you keep that in track to make sure that it's always $50 consistently across the board. So anytime you want to do that. So there's a lot of different ideas. I don't want to constrain people from ideas, but whatever you can do with the price value, that can be done. Yeah.
That can be done.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, then I'm going to ask you to share your screen if possible so that we can get started with this exciting workshop.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to
Yeah.
add this to stage
All
and
right.
I can see your slides.
Okay, awesome. Well, we are API3. We are real world data, Web3 straight from the source. What that means is we are a first party Oracle. So a lot of our data sources, we don't know where it comes from, right? So we as API3 require anybody that has a data source to run their own air node is what we call it. And so we are not a middleman. All we do is aggregate the data from that source and then bring it all to you. And I'll explain that in a little bit detail later. For API3, what services we provide? We have 4 services as of today. So it's Chain API. That's the ability to bring your own like API data and then bring that data on chain. Let's say you had a sports website that you wanted to like allow crypto perpetuals to do this, or an MMA fight, right? Who's going to win, yay or nay? How do you get that data from the website to your smart contract? You use Chain API. We have QRNG, which is quantum random number generator. So it allows you to work with random numbers, a lot of lotteries, a lot of like different NFT type of games. Those are features that, you can't do that stuff on chain. So we allow you to get a random number and then bring that data on chain. No token required. You just use gas of the native thing. So like you could just use some Metis to like keep that number going. What we're going to discuss today are DAPIs, basically price feeds on chain. And then our latest product, which we're going to get into a series to, is the OEV network, which is Oracle Extractable Value. You guys have probably heard of MEV or heard that buzz term here and there. It allows users to bid on the ability to update the price feed yourself. And we'll get a little discussion into that in just a little bit later. Who am I? I am Billy Jitsu, the developer advocate. This is my socials. If you've seen my socials or know me around, I'm not always business. I'm kind of 50-50, laughing and talking tech. So if you like to see my shenanigans or what's happening with API3 and announcements, definitely throw me a follow. If not, just stick around with Metis. I'm in the Telegram chat if you have questions for Metis anyway. All right. So we're going to do a quick breakdown. So this is going to be a little bit out of the ordinary of how we do workshops. Usually we're kind of like one and done. So the brainchild that we're working with now is we're going to do a series of workshops, right? So like The number one thing I'm not a big fan of is, a developer coming in, shilling their SDK for like 40 minutes and then like peace, and then we're out, right? We're going to do a series of workshops, which, teaches you more than just our SDK. More, we're ultimately going to teach you how to be a searcher, right? So what does that mean? You have to learn price feeds, you have to know how to do searchers, how to do liquidations, and all the things that happen in between it, like flash loans and whatnot. So we're going to do a series of 4 workshops, and the workshops could be spread out a little bit more or could be crunched up depending on how the speed of everybody digests the information. But here's a quick workshop breakdown. So the first workshop is going to be the fundamentals of API3, right? How to get a price feed into your smart contract. Or let's say you found a nice repo that uses an Oracle that's not supported on Metis, right? But API3 is on Metis. So how can I modify, my data into to use API3 to use the code, right? So I want to fork this awesome repo, but it's a totally different structure and I just need the price feeds. I'm going to show you how to do that today. Second workshop, that'll be like at least 2 weeks from now, is Oracle extractable value. What is OEV? How to push and pull Oracle's work. So understanding the difference between the two, understanding the OEV network, how does that work? And then learn how to update an API3 price feed on the Metis network. So like, let's say ETH is 2020 on the price and you see a liquidable position at 2021, and then CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap says, Ethereum is a 2025, you can bid to update the price feed and then, run a liquidation. So we're going to get you on that first step to get going. Again, we're not trying to overwhelm you with a lot of information, but get you familiar. So like baby steps on there. Third workshop is a hefty one. So deploy Aave. So we have the CLI tool that is going to let you basically run a script to deploy Aave. So you're going to deploy your own borrow lending platform, right? And then you're going to learn how to liquidate the positions using the OEV network. So if you deploy this on Metis and then you see like this position is like, hey, someone's over leveraged on there, I want to liquidate them for 100,000 or $1,000 or something, you're going to be able to learn how to look at those positions, see the health factors, and then learn how to do the liquidation port, right? You're learning how to use multi-call and all these different things. So there's a lot of skill factors in that. Fourth workshop is flash loans, right? Let's say, you see $1 million position. I don't have $1 million available in liquidity right now. It's all locked up. So we learned how to use flash loans, how to borrow, borrow like $1 million or whatever amount from a borrow lending platform, pay back the loan, do a little bit of arbitrage, pay back the loan, and then keep the profit, right? So that's what we're going to be covering on the fourth workshop. So it's a lot of step-by-step things of like, learning how to read it, learning how to update an Oracle, learn how to liquidate, and then learn how to do all kind of like the fancy tricks, all spread out, across a bunch of different workshops. So it's not just API3 shoved down your throat, but more of like how to use API3 and then learn a skill on there. So today's
Absolutely. Sorry, I just wanted to stress that out because I think it's very important. Like the kind of content that is going to come from these workshops, series of workshops, is very hard, if not impossible, to find on the web. And we are lucky enough that Billy is here to provide this information for free, going the extra mile. And in fact, I think that this third session, deploying Aave, is going to take maybe more than one session because
yeah,
probably that's not that trivial, right?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, guys, for the people in our audience, please share this with other developers and give us some feedback so that we can keep improving. And once again, thank you, Billy. Please continue.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, just a side note on that, like liquidations and like MEV it's kind of like community, but it's very PvP, right? So finding information is out there, but no one's going to show you how to do it because it's very PvP, because now you become a competitor, right? But with layer
Yes.
twos and like MEV and sequencers, it's like it hasn't really been, a major thing. But now as more liquidity is coming over to layer twos and there's opportunity to grab, I think first mover advantage of people that are learning to do this opportunity and working with OEV to do so, there's a lot of opportunity to make money, to be honest. So like being part of the network and learning some skills that you could, learn in Metis or take it anywhere with you. So like as my frustrations as a developer, I was like, man, why can't I learn to see somebody do this? Be the change you want to be, right? So that's what we're gonna do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if anybody gets stuck watching live, or if you have a questions, throw a comment on there. Again, Victor, throw a comment on there. I'm pretty chill, I can handle questions. I don't have it memorized as a script. We're just gonna just go with it, but we're just gonna get a price feed on our smart contract, right? Just getting started with API3, going through the marketplace. All right. So the workshop breakdown, the key learning points for that you're going to learn today is how oracles work. We kind of covered it a little bit, like how Ethereum doesn't read outside its own network. Think about like back in the days when Ethereum or like Xbox and PlayStation, you couldn't play with each other, right? You either had Xbox, you can only play with Xbox players. So like that's Ethereum. And let's say like Solana, you can only play with Solana players, right? And so there's no way for it to communicate from the outside world. So that's what oracles are, right? We bring that data from the outside and then put it in there. How we solve it is through our air node system. That's the way we do it. There's a lot of different ways that many other people do it. You know, Cocoa Pepsi, right? What do you like, right? And then how to set up your smart contract. Basically, a very simple way to like set up your smart contract to read the market feed, and then picking a feed on the marketplace. We're going to do that live. Really, really simple. I'm going to do that in Remix. I know we have a lot of frameworks out there. The two popular ones are Hardhat and Foundry, right? But just to get started and to get your hands dirty, I really love Remix because it lets you like not have to deal with like downloading a whole framework and getting it all set up, env files. It's really simple. You're going to see how quick it is to get it going. All right. So, what is an air node? How does it work? What am I talking about? You know, throwing random words and people confused. So, like, air nodes is basically like a backend system that we have a smart contract on every layer two or every like network that we're on, right? And so anybody can run their own air node. It's permissionless. You don't have to ask us for API 3. You can literally just fork it and run it. And then let you provide data. That's how we run, you know, let you run your own thing. Like if you wanted to run your own sporting bet system, you could. But the way we do it is we aggregate all those air nodes that are first party, and then we say, all right, let's say CoinGecko's running one. Let's say, you know, these other companies are running price feeds. This one says ETH is 2,800. This one says ETH is 2,805. This one says this one's 2,802. Right? We aggregate all that data, average it out, and then give you a direct price feed. That's where API 3 comes in, right? But if you wanted to go direct to CoinGecko from their air node, you could. So you could kind of bypass. I don't know why you would, but you could, right? So it's like a request response kind of system. What are the APIs? Well, in short, that's a price feed, right? So like I said before, we grab a whole bunch of data feeds on there. So everybody that's providing a data feed, you can actually backtrace on to see who's giving you the data feed, right? So like it's kind of like a farmer's market, right? Straight from the source, you can actually trace it back from the very like location of the smart contract, look at the DNS record and see who gave the price feed. So you can always verify where that price feed is coming from. We never double up. You can always just check, right? So you know, it's very simple. For the smart contract developer, it's just a price feed, right? For the guys that want to really get into the details of like where does the feed come from, how often is it updated, you know, you can always refer it, and it has a unique data feed ID, so you can always prove where that data is coming from. And then, so we're going to have a link to the example. This is a GitHub repo that's based on Hardhat. That's full of, you know, examples that has the tests and everything. It's going to cover everything that we have today. Just to show you a quick look at what it looks like. Oop, give me 1 second. It is basically going to be this repo, but you don't really have to copy it right now, but you could fork it and run it. I even have a video companion, right? That even if you miss this or you miss this whole thing, if you look at the repo, it will have the entire thing explained with the video companion. Like I said, I'm really serious about teaching you guys. So like if the README doesn't make sense and the code doesn't make sense, follow the video. If not, follow this Metis video and it'll all make sense to you, but it'll take you through the whole thing. So that's a little plug on the side. And enough talk. Let's get building, right? So let's throw up Remix. And I have a few, for those that want to follow along, I'm going to throw this on the private chat. Actually, I could throw it in the main chat because I have access to it now. There's going to be a few GitHub gists on there. So I'll just throw it on the main chat and post a comment. I believe I'm Billy at API 3 on there. So that should, oh, I can't post a Metis. So let me throw it on the private chat. And then I'll have you, Victor, throw it on there.
For sure, I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's right there in the private chat, but let me just go ahead and paste it. So instead of coding line by line, I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste it and then do a code breakdown. It's not a lot of code, so I'm not too worried about it, and we'll cover it. So we're going to go ahead and okay. And so I have my contracts set up, and it's just a simple price feed.sol. And let me just minimize all this stuff right here just so you can do. I'm going to get rid of all these notes. It's all there for you to read on there, but basically it's about, what is it, 23 lines of code. That's including some comments on here, and it's really simple. So for Metis, we want to make sure that we're using Solidity version 8.19 or below. At 20, I believe it's that new fork, and then has the push 0. So like if you do 18, 20, or 24 or anything, and you try to deploy it through Remix, you're going to get an error. So make sure that you're using Solidity version 8.19 or below. And so the only thing you have to import is this API 3 contracts, the iproxy.sol import, it's just an interface, right? We're not installing a library, so you won't see like API3 price feed is API3 library. It's just an interface, but we make it an import to make it much more simpler. One line of code on there. This one is Open Zeppelin. I'm just using Ownable, and I'll explain it why. Again, if you're using 8.19 and you're using Remix, make sure that you're using 4.9.3 or something below 5, because it, with the 820, there was a few changes with 5.0 and up. So like it will give you a little conflict. In the hard hat, it is set directly to all these settings already. So like if you do like yarn install or npm install, it will load that for you anyway. So anyway, let's break down the contract. Really, really simple. We have the contract I'm just calling API3 price feed, and I'm making it ownable. The reason I'm making it ownable, let me get into that one system, is, we have this set proxy address, right? Once we set a price feed, we don't want anybody to change our price feed, right? Like if we're sitting at for ETH and we have like this borrow lending DApp, and then we set it to like wrap BTC or something, that changes the price and, ruins the scheme of it. So we want to make sure that nobody else can change the price feeds. We can actually make this immutable if you wanted to. But let's break down this code. So we're just doing a one public proxy address, which is basically what price feed do we want our contract to read, right? We don't have anything in our constructor. There's really nothing required. And we have this one function that will let us change the price feed, and that's a set proxy address. All it does is change the address of which contract we want to read. If we want to read ETH, wrap BTC, or Metis, or any other token we want, we can change the address here. So our contract will read a simple one. And now the very, very simple function, read data feed, right? It's just going to return two things to us. So it's going to return the value. What is the price of the asset? And then what's the timestamp of when it was updated? And that's really, really important, because we want to make sure that, our timestamp has been, or the price has been updated recently, right? So like, something that moves a lot when a very volatile market, it's moving every minute on the minute, or every second, right? But the way push oracles work is every time there's an update on chain, it costs gas, right? So like if we were to do this every second, like a centralized exchange, we'd be out of business. Nobody can do that, right? So the way we do it is deviations in price. So if there's a change of like 1% or a change of 0.5% or 0.25%, depending on the Oracle feed, which we'll cover in just a second, that's when the price gets updated. So we want to make sure that the timestamp is healthy, that has either been updated pretty recently or at least 24 hours. If not, we want to write some code to say, hey, if the price hasn't been updated, shut it all down, because there could be a hack or there's a problem with the Oracle, right? And here I just have a couple conversion values. It comes default int 224. And most people that are starting Solidity most likely work with UN256, or a lot of examples start with UN256. So I have just a conversion on here that changes the int 224 to UN256, so we could see it as normal. And then just a function to return the price and the timestamp, right? So pretty straightforward, right? For like two functions, and really you can do it on one if you wanted to, but I just added this ability so you can change the price feed and see how it looks. And so let's go ahead and deploy this. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my objective provider, and let me switch over to Metis. There we go. And I'm just going to deploy. There's nothing in the constructor, so I can just deploy this. I'm going to go ahead and deploy that. And again, if you have any questions or if you're stuck, let me know.
So here you're going to be deploying directly on mainnet, right?
No, this is going to be the Metis testnet, Sepolia testnet.
Got it.
And we're spinning. I don't know what's happened with my MetaMask. Let's see.
Maybe it's a good moment to ask you
Yes.
why we all use MetaMask when sometimes it has these issues.
I do it because most people are familiar with it. My
It's
primary wallet is Rabby wallet.
yeah,
I like it.
for development, like for
Yeah,
development, absolutely everyone that I know of uses MetaMask, and we
yeah,
all know that it's buggy sometimes, but it
yeah,
still is. It's like that first advantage is so strong,
yeah,
first mover
yeah,
advantage.
for sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening with my MetaMask here. We're seeing. Let me just cancel all these here. Let me just reject this. If not, I'm going to reclose it and reopen it. This is real time debugging, guys. All right, let me close this out. Let me remix this in here. Let's see what we get. All right, so Metis contracts, price feed, back where we started, right here. We're recompiled right here, and let me go ahead and try this again. If not, I will close out my entire MetaMask or browser and then do it again. Let's see. Yeah, it's still stuck on these 2 transactions for some reason, but let's see what we get. And yeah, I can't reject my 2 transactions, so I'm going to go ahead and close my browser, start it off from fresh. Yep. All right, do it again. And let's see if that cleans me up. All right, let's do it again. Cool. We're compiled, inject a provider. I am on Metis. Let's try it one more time. There we go. And can you see this code? Is it big enough? There we go. Transaction confirmed.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Things happen when you're live. When you're live coding, this is what happens. You know. Okay. So we have basically a blank contract, right? I haven't set a price feed yet. So like if I read the data feed, right? Like I should get nothing. There's nothing here is going to fail out because we have no data feed. So we're going to head over to api3.org where you go market.api3.org, takes us directly to the marketplace, right? And you can see we're across tons of networks here. And let's go to testnets and we're going to pop in Metis. And you see that here we have Metis Apolia testnet. And you can basically search your feed. Right now, before the workshop, the day before, I made sure to check ETH. So I made that go live, but you can see here, you can see what the current price is at the time. You can see all the data feed providers. So you can see who's giving a price feed on what their price feed they're coming at each zone. You can verify the DNS. So like I said, if you wanted to say who's giving price feeds, so if we have any malicious price feeds or anybody's trying to like hack with the feed, we're very particular about that, about security. So you can always verify where these price feeds are coming from. Because I turned this on, I can renew this, but let's just turn something on so you could also something else on. We're going to do wrap BTC just so you can see how that process works. So this one hasn't been activated, right? You can activate it yourself. That's one of the cool features about API3. Like if you want a price feed, you don't have to ask us. Like it's already automated. So nobody, you don't have to DM Billy. Can you turn on wrap BTC? I need it from a project. You can activate it yourself. So we'll go ahead and activate that. And it's going to let you know who are the sources, what's the deviation. You can change the deviations. Like I said, like for testnet, we're allowing 5% deviation. So the way deviations work is how precise do you need that price feed to be at any given time. So like, if ETH is $2,000 on a 1% deviation, the next time it's going to update is either going to be at 1980 because 1% of 2,000 is $20. So it's either going to update at 1980 or 2020. At 0.5 deviation, it's going to update at 1990 or 2010, and 0.5, 1995 or 2005, right? So depending how many updates per every price change is what you're going to get in deviation. That's different costs. For standard, and it's been a while, for a while, like 1% deviation seems to work. So we're going to go with that for now. And so in the testnet, it's only allowed for 7 days. So you can keep renewing it over time. So let's go ahead and purchase that out. And that's just going to activate our price feed, right? So it turns it on, it'll start reading, and it does it almost instantly. Like as a user, you're like, who cares? But as a platform, we're like, that's awesome, right? So you can do it by yourself. You don't have to ask anybody. It's like all about permissionless. That's the ultimate goal. Like you want something, you just go out the request and like turn it on.
Yeah, that's
Assuming
amazing.
assuming the price feed has enough liquidity, has enough data for it, right? Like if it's a new meme coin and there's only like one DEX that has it, we won't offer it, because it's just too dangerous. So you see that the price feed is live, it's ready to go, and you can integrate it into your DApp. Literally the same code that we're doing right here. This is how you read the data feed. Like this is how simple it is to get it integrated, and then the proxy address. But let's go back to ETH just to do a nice comparison. ETH is always a safe one. So I'm going to go ahead and type in ETH. That one's live already. And so we're going to integrate this into our smart contract. And so this is the proxy address that we're going to grab here. So this is the address that you need to tell your contract, hey, I want to read ETH USD. And so here, like this function here, set proxy address, I want to say, all right, this is the address I want to read. I want my contract to read ETH USD. And you can do multiple functions, right? You can have ETH, wrap BTC, Metis, whatever you want on there. And that transaction is confirmed. So now if I read the data feed, I actually get data. So let me make that a little bit larger. And you see it's 18 decimals and a timestamp, right? So it's $3,786.82. If I go to there, back to the marketplace, $3,786.82. And yeah. So you can prove it at any time, real time. Like we did this in like what, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, minus MetaMask issues, right? So it's really simple to get your price feed on there, and it updates either in 24 hours or 1% deviation. Again, so like if there's a difference in like what 1% $37, then it'll have a change in price, and so it'll update automatically. If you do this price feed, any of your dApps can read this. So like it's on chain now, so anybody can read this for free. So like if someone's providing the dApp payment, easy W for everybody. So easy enough. Hopefully everybody got that's pretty simple, right? Like it's do you have any questions on that? I don't know.
Yeah,
Talk to me.
let's see if I have something on the chats. I'm checking right now.
Yeah.
Only things about MetaMask, but really it is super straightforward. So
Yeah.
personally, I don't have questions. Like I
All
would
right.
just go and copy this piece of code.
For sure. So okay, so like that's why. So like it's really simple to get started. Again, it's just an interface. The only extra thing is this ownable.sol, but that's just for security, right? You don't want to do that. So let's take it another step, right? Of this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Is let's say you found an awesome repo, right? Like has let's say you want to fork Aave, right? We know they use different types of oracles, or you see something on like OBNB or something, and it uses a data feed reader, right? Like it's something else besides API3 Oracle. So let's go ahead and open that up. We're gonna throw this in there, and this is going to be the other one for another Oracle here. Let me go ahead and copy that gist and put it in the private chat so you can see. So here's an example of another Oracle that may be on there. So if you share that out to the other chain, it's also on the repo too, just in case. But let's go ahead and grab this Oracle information, and we're going to create a new code.sol file. And so let's go ahead and make that on here. Other Oracle. So you found this cool dApp that does something you want to do on Metis, and it doesn't it doesn't. That's actually the same code. 1 second, big L. 1 second. And like you don't want to refactor, right? It's been audited. It's been they did all the bells and whistles. So as soon as you change any piece of code, it becomes problematic, right? And we can all agree that aggregator v3 interface is probably one of the most popular libraries for oracles. It's used across many different chains. It's I don't want to say it's the standard, but like it's very popular use. So I'm using that as an example. And so we're going to go ahead and deploy this on Sepolia because they don't have support on Metis. So let me switch over to Sepolia really quick, and we're just going to launch this guy out. So let me go ahead and make sure that's good. This one requires a price feed, so I'm going to get ETH USD and deploy that out here. And so again, like you find a lot of cool stuff on repos for those that like to repo hunt or like look at dApps that look awesome and you want to fork. That becomes a problem, right? Because this Oracle is not on this chain. I can't deploy there now. I can't have a first mover advantage, but API3 is there, right? So let's look at the difference in the data. And as soon as that Sepolia goes through, all right. So right here we have this called data consumer value, right? And so if we get the latest answer from here, we're going to see way different data, right? So it's like, I can't use API3 oracles because look at the difference. That's not going to work, right? So they have this thing called round ID. The actual answer, which was their price for ETH, is $3,793. And then the timestamp of when it started at, timestamp, and answered in round, right? Also, it's not in 18 decimals. It's in a much shorter decimal range. So it's like, how do we use oracles in between, right? And here's a solution. You don't have to change any of the code here. All you have to do is where it gets the price feed. And that's where the adapter comes in, right? The contract is expecting this format. So it's like, let's give it that format, right? So we know that it wants a price feed. We know it wants a timestamp. I know it wants a round ID. And if we look at the numbers, a lot of this is the same information, kind of just used over and over. So we match those settings, right? So again, it's a very simple version of the price feed, right? Like we're just gonna a way to update the Oracle source and then get the actual answer. So we're gonna mimic that, right? So let's go ahead and create an adapter. Oops. We'll call it adapter dot sol. And I'm going to go step by step on the code just to get you up and running the same way we've done before. And paste this down. All right. So we're importing the library here, making sure that we get the right aggregator v3 interface .sol, right? So, you're going to have to use the same library interface that the Oracle that's using. Depending on what Oracle you use, you have to make sure you get the right interface. And so we're going to create a global variable for our data feed, right? Same thing as the iProxy for API3. We're just calling it data feed. We're deploying it with our data feed. So when we deploy it, we want to make sure that it has the price feed that we want. And here's the catch for this, right? We don't want to change where the oracles. It's very, very dangerous. Like if you have the ability to change the oracle in the middleman, even though your smart contract is set for ETH, and then the middleman has the ability to change something, then it becomes very problematic because you can't trust your source. So we make sure that it's basically immutable in a sense. For for demo purposes, we are letting you get in. Oh, hold on, let me my other oracles right here is difficult here. 1 second. Let me grab this same thing. I'm like copying the same thing over and over again. Let me copy this one more time. Give me 1 second. Hold on. I'm copying like the same code over and over again.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
We got you.
let me give me a second. I'll get it right. I think I copied the same like link directly twice. And 1 second. Hold that thought. Let me just get the adapter on here and I'll copy this. There we go.
Yes. In
Yeah,
the meantime, people, if you have any questions, I know some of you are watching, please feel free to do so. If
yeah,
not, leave a comment, a like, subscribe.
yeah,
We're doing this for you. And if
yeah.
you can provide some support to us, we would really appreciate it.
Yeah. If you're lost or anything, let me know. We'll stop and everything. Yeah. Okay, back to business. Okay, so now we're having it correct. Now we have our import interface for the iProxy, right? We're getting our interface for our adapter, right? So we're using API3. We want to use API3 oracles. We want to interface with the existing Oracle system. We're just calling a simple contract API3 aggregator adapter. It's basically, you know, for whatever Oracle you want to use, we have to be able to mimic that, right? So when we deploy it, we want to make sure that we cannot change the price feed. We're the middleman in a sense of where the price feed's coming from. So like I was saying before, if your original smart contract is set for ETH, we want to make sure that nothing can change when we're looking for ETH, right? So for every Oracle that we want, we have to deploy a specific adapter for that price feed. So every time we do it, we're just going to hard code it proxy. You can do it, you can update it if you want to, but you know, I wouldn't, right? It's just for safety and security. And then we just mimic the data, right? If we look at the other Oracle, it's asking for the latest round data, that same function. Here's the get us link round data, right? It's returning a round ID, an answer, started at, timestamp, answered in round, right? And it's basically returning that data to you. So in our adapter, we're going to return that same data, right? But the data that we don't have, we're just going to mock it, right? So it's like, all right, it's not super important to get your price feed. The most important thing that you need is the ability to get your price feed and the timestamp to make sure that it's not stale, right? So if we look at it, right, what it's returning is this unconverted answer is reading the data feed. Remember, API3 function was read the data feed. It returned two things. So let's just go back to those deployments and then go back to the API3 price feed. It just returned the price feed, the price in 18 decimals and a timestamp, right? So that's all we got. So we know that it's coming back with two answers, right? And so it's all right. Now we have to make sure that this 18 decimals matches the 10 decimal, 8 decimal system that the other Oracle has, right? It has to be shorter. It doesn't match up. So we basically divide it by 10 decimals, and then we can make sure that we convert this into an N256 because that's the standard that they have. And then basically our updated at and started at are the same because it is just a timestamp of when that was updated. So we use our data from our timestamp and we're going to match it with the way they have it. So we're using those same storage. And then round ID and answered in round, API 3 doesn't have that. It's not required. You can go back and review it a different way, but we need to give it something. So I'm just literally copying the round ID randomly. It could be random numbers, anything that you want, anything that is going to give you information that will, that will be useful to you in a sense. But this will keep returning it every time. So now that we have that, let me go ahead and deploy it on Metis, because we don't have Oracle's options on Metis for this. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's deployed. So let's go back to Metis network. And if you're stuck or any questions, let me know. Or if you're curious, let me know. Don't be afraid. All right, so let me go ahead and deploy this on Metis. So I'm just going to grab a random price feed. It's not going to work. And let's push this over to Metis network. All right, so let me minimize that. And then let me minimize this. And this is our Metis deployment, right? And if I get the latest answer, it's just going to fail, right? It's like, hey, I don't know what's going on. There's no oracles here that support this on the Metis network. Doesn't work, right? So now that we have our adapter ready to go, we have it set. We're going to have it set to do ETHUSD, right? And then we have this round ID. It's like, all right, so all we have to do is deploy this adapter with our ETH network, our ETH price feed for that on the Metis network, and it'll work magically, or hopefully, right? So we're going to go ahead and integrate that, get that proxy address from the market feed. And so when we deploy it, we deploy this adapter. Say, hey, I want to make sure that this is with ETH USD price feed. Let's go ahead and deploy this guy. And so now we have this contract sitting in the network that's just going to feed ETH price feed on the format that the Oracle requires, right? So now we have this API3 aggregator. And just so you can read it, like I added this little read data feed option so you can see and test it for yourself. But if I read the data feed, it's getting our API3 Oracle in the API3 format, right? And so now this is now our new proxy price feed. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this contract address. I'm going to minimize this to keep it as simple as possible. And then on this deployed contract with the other Oracle on Metis network, I'm going to go ahead and update that Oracle to the adapter price feed. Wait for that to go. And so now the Oracle that was pointing to, let me look at the camera. That was pointing to this other Oracle is now redirected to our Oracle now. So like, hey, we're pointing out there. So if I get the latest answer, I should get some data. And so there we go. We actually have data now, right? And so now it's reading from API3 oracles. So we have this round ID. And remember, I hard coded that. So it's like 1842881, right? So this data is just kind of like arbitrary data. It's just sitting there on there that just needed. But the most important thing is getting our price feed and it's getting our timestamp. So you can check that and then use without refactoring the code, without having to do anything with the original code. You're just changing the location where it's getting the data from and matching that format. So then you can use API3 oracles for like any project that you know of. So like if there's just something that was super cool out there and it's just not available in Metis, well, you can use API3. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Questions, go for it.
Yeah, it looks very, very powerful. I'm so glad that you're showing all of this process in detail.
Yeah,
Again, I don't think I've seen this before, to be
yeah,
honest,
yeah.
in terms of content. So I really, really appreciate it. Maybe for someone that is completely new, like is getting started on Web3 development,
Mm-hmm.
I must ask you about like a little bit of more context on when would you want to do this, use all of these tools that you have been showing right now, like in a more like realistic scenario.
Right. So yeah, I mean, from my personal experience, it's been like I see tutorials. Tutorials are out there, but they're also outdated. Or they use
Right,
libraries that like aren't around anymore, right? So
right.
like there's tons of other Oracle data that have first mover advantage, that are out there with maybe that's the first place they do, but say, hey, I want to try this on Metis network, right? And it doesn't work, right? Because they don't have oracles there. So now, or this testnet, or it was only on Gurley testnet, and oh well, that's not there anymore, right? So these oracles or these contracts that weren't there anymore, well now you can't play with it, right? because
Yes.
now it doesn't work. So I want to use this code that I'm following a tutorial with, and I want to use it with oracles that work today. So like that was the number one struggle that we've had. That's my own personal struggle of like being able to figure out like this is really good content, but it's made 2 years ago, and 2 years ago was like a decade in this space, right? So now it doesn't
Yes.
work anymore. It's been deprecated. So if you see this awesome DeFi tutorial and it uses an oracle that you can't use anymore and you can't build it on the network of your choice, well, now you
Mm.
have problems, right? So that kind of led to the adapter. It's like, all right, you don't have to like overcomplicate it. It's like literally, oh, you just need this data. I don't need to modify it because you're just learning. So instead of following along, now you're trying to troubleshoot and recode to fit formats. And this is a UN 256, and this is an int 24, and this is an int 256, and now you're confused, and now you're struggling on stuff that is not covered by the tutorial. You can now match it to do what you need on there. So by like stumbling onto this video, you're like, oh, okay, now with this tutorial, I can use this oracle on Metis Network and then move on and actually learn what I want to learn instead of being frustrated with a framework that doesn't work or frustrated with a repo that doesn't work anymore because it's outdated, right? So that comes from my own personal frustrations, and like just getting this out there is like, hey, you can do this if you kind of like think outside the box a little bit. Then there's opportunity for you to like explode. And then again, like you're this DeFi protocol, right, that you've deployed on mainnet, and then you want to move it over to Metis, and like think the tools aren't there. All right, well maybe API 3 adapter is not there for you, but there's another adapter that you can use now. Like I've just opened your mind, like, hey, we don't have
Yes.
to wait, you know. So that's
Yes.
kind of the
We
goal. Yeah,
No, no, that's amazing. Like you mentioned, we don't have to wait, and you just show us exactly how. I think that I was, looking at some of the chats that we have with other builders, and precisely, I think there was one that was asking something very, very close to what you were showing right now. So
yeah,
it's going to come very in handy.
yeah,
Uh, there is some question from Alexis B.
yeah,
Uh, Let me read that to you.
for
You
sure.
would do this before checking for a liquidation. Basically, ping for the price and maybe check on chain on a lending platform like Aave and force the liquidation to take the arbitrage profit.
Yes. That's literally our workshop series, right? That's going to be like a mixture of workshop 2 and 3, but that's exactly what it is because we provide oracles for a lot of different DeFi platforms. So in long story short, you're going to be checking the health factor of people that have positions on there. And so if the health factor is at like close to 1 or 1.0 or getting right there, they're close to liquidation. So you're constantly going to be looking at prices. Like, all right, they're going to get liquidated at this price of ETH or RAT BTC or whatever, right? Like let's say ETH is 3,800 and at 3,790 they can get liquidated. You're going to be watching, and a lot of other people are going to be watching for that because they all want to be first. Hence the MEV battles. So by by checking the price of when these things get updated, you'll know API 3. Oh, there's a 1% deviation, so it's not going to get updated to 365, right? So even though the price is liquidable, the it hasn't updated on chain, and that gets into OEV of like how Oracle can be extracted in a sense. But yes, you would be pinging the prices of the actual Oracle and the health factor of the user. So like that's I was like, oh, that's a lot of information, right? Like we're basically devrelling for a lot of different platforms in a sense of like these are the tools you need, right? Like API 3 is just the price feed. Anybody can give you a price feed, So whatever platform you do, what sets API 3 apart is kind of workshop 2, the OEV, the ability to update this price feed, right? So like when we're looking at price feeds and we're saying, okay, what is the feed right now? It's 37.86. But if I go to CoinGecko right now and I look at ETH white backgrounds, it's 37.82, right? So like it's not within the deviation of updating in price. So how do we update that, right? And that's where OEV comes in, and that's workshop number 2 of like, okay, I see this opportunity here. There's an opportunity to make $100,000 on this crazy $1 million liquidation, right? But I don't want to wait for this to get to the 1% deviation. Let's say it never gets there, right? Like it's to 385, and then it was supposed to update at like 370, 786, and it never gets there because it just doesn't. And so you miss that opportunity to liquidate, even though theoretically it could be liquidated. It's just the oracle never got there because the price never updated. So that's kind of how we get into OEV and like how to like basically decentralize the way price feeds are updated in a sense. And it makes it a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there is another question here that says also, I'm sure you can use this API to aggregate across chain swap.
You could, yeah. That's basically cross-chain arbitrage. Sometimes with DeFi, you'll see that more like on dexes, right? Like if ETH is selling on Metis for, let's say, 3,000, and then on like Polygon or BNB, it's selling for 3,020, right? I mean, what's to stop you from grabbing a whole bunch of ETH here and then bridging it over and then selling it over there and getting the profit, right? So it's cross
Yeah,
chain arbitrage. Yeah. So like that's also with DEX volume and price feed. It's a little bit more complicated because the time you actually get to the bridge and the timing of everything. Yeah, that's a whole searcher thing. So that gets very complicated. If the workshop takes off, we can definitely cover that. That's I'm gonna say 8 workshops in to be honest, because now you're monitoring different price positions across different networks. So like you really need to run like different nodes and validations, or have a super super awesome RPC network, because you're pinging everywhere at every time. So like you're
every
pinging
time.
prices on Metis, for maybe 2 assets on how many dexes, and then you're pinging on 2 assets on another chain for how many dexes. And so like you're like constantly doing some pings and then learning how to use multi-call and being able to save on those RPC requests. Those are all just different skills that's going to help you overall.
Right. And we got kind of a hot question. I like
Yeah.
this. Thank
Yeah.
you, Alex, for all of your questions. So it says you guys are already established, but what would make you want to use like your APY in comparison to, let's say, Chainlink Oracle APY?
Have you met the API3 DevRel? Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
That's
uh,
enough.
yeah.
Like, I'm sold.
No, honestly, it's the same. Like I say Pepsi or Coke, right? And Chainlink is probably like one of the pioneers in the space, and they offer price feeds too. Like price feeds are a dime a dozen, right? There's tons of oracles out there that can give you a price feed. It's what else can it give you, right? Like
Like
it's
this
I don't know if
workshop.
it's yeah, it's not that difficult to get a price feed, and it's how expensive is it to get a price feed? How expensive is it to get infrastructure? How scalable is it? Right, like getting the Oracle infrastructure is nice, but then like okay, let's say there's a new token that came out. How fast can they get that token to you to use for your DeFi protocol? Right,
Mhm.
with first party oracles, if a first party is like, hey, we want to support this, cool. If you're using like a third party oracle, well, now you have to convince all the third parties to support that ticker, right? It's like, oh, please support this chain and get this going. So in essence, not to downgrade anybody else, but like we can move pretty quick and we're scalable. So like if you look at the API3 announcements and what we do, you'll say this feed's available, this chain is available, and so we can move much quicker. I'm pretty nice, I guess. So, I'd probably be the one of the people that you would work with. And then we also have OEV, right? And that's kind of like the thing that really sets us apart. And that's our newest product, is the ability for users to update the price feed. And
Mm,
so, yeah, it's like, okay, like either you wait for the 1% deviation or whatever deviation that's purchased. And that's been the standard for a long time. But then it's like, hey, why can't people do it like for these opportunities, and they see it instead of waiting for the price feed to actually change if it ever gets there? Allow the people to bid on that for that opportunity. And then when a DeFi like borrow lending platform uses our Oracle, instead of the bid or the bribe going to the validator, it goes back to the DApp.
mm,
So that's something for workshop too. So it's like by using our Oracle, you actually kind of get paid in a sense, because
yeah.
when you do a liquidation, you have to pay to keep the platform healthy, right? So there's a 5% reward, 10% reward, depending on like the liquidation. So like platforms bleed money over time. Like Aave has lost millions of dollars just to liquidations. They get nothing out of it, right? Like they're just the middleman. They like they borrow and then they lend, and that's it. So when someone liquidates, they're just losing value, TVL over time. With API3, when someone updates the Oracle to do a liquidation, that Oracle fee or that update fee goes back to the DApp. So now
Mm,
you as a DApp, like a DApp on a chain, right? Like it's pretty copy paste, right? There's nothing very innovative on borrow lending platforms other than who has the better APY. So why not do incentives for, with liquidations with that newfound money of being able to be different and stand out from the crowd? So, like now you can have better APYs, or you could fund public goods, or you can find different incentives for your users to stand out now. So if you're using API3 oracles, again, like how simple it is to use a price feed, they all do price feeds, but right now API3 is the only one that you'll get paid. So that's been pretty aggressive, and people kind of dig that. So hopefully that
Of
answers your
course.
question. Yeah.
I think that answers the question. It
Yeah.
shows like really clear what's your main like kind of difference, right? And
Yep.
incentive.
Yep.
And it's pretty interesting, I must say. So thank you so much, Billy, for joining us today. I don't know
Yeah.
if there is anything else that you would like people that are watching this to do next, in terms of maybe forking the repository and using it, maybe do a PR or joining some of your channels for keep building.
Yeah.
I know that we have the Metis developers Telegram chat that is always like there available for anyone who wants to ask questions about these tutorials and about these other projects. But maybe there it is. We
Yeah.
have
So
Discord link.
if you get stuck or anything, you can always join the Discord. It's basically API3 DAO. Talk in the dev chat. I'm also in the Metis group, right? Like I don't even be like, hey, come on over this way. Like I like to be in the trenches with the builders. People that have questions, just tag me on there. If I get overwhelmed, I'll eventually get you. If you don't see me within a day, or if it's a weekend, tag me again. But more than happy to help everybody. It's just whatever questions you have. If you see me at a hackathon, say hi. Like I'm the kind of guy that will pull out their laptop and like, oh, what are you building? Let's figure it out, kind of stuff. So that's I like it. I like this stuff. So reach out to the API3 DAO community. There's other people that will support you as well if I'm sleeping, or tag me in the Menace builders chat. Right, like it's step
Absolutely.
one, right? And it's just a matter of like getting you used to the market, getting you used to like API3 interfaces. Not trying to hype up a price feed because it's just a price feed, but like other things that you can do with it. We have tons of examples on our repos. Like I build a lot of MVPs of like, oh, okay, like when I think we had like this Bitcoin bait, if Bitcoin got to this price, so based on wrap Bitcoin, I checked the price of the Oracle. If it got this, people that wanted to bet, will Bitcoin get to 100,000 by this date? There's an example, right? Like, so if you want to have
Right.
fun with it or just get creative, like I see something on socials that are trending, I'm like, oh, let me build it. So like there's tons of examples out there that you can do. A couple games with random numbers, so just experiment, just play. um oh yeah, like if you're going to consensus, I am not going this time. I usually do go. I just got so much on my plate and I'm doing a lot of traveling, so I'm skipping Texas, but it's a bummer because like I'm feeling FOMO because everybody's going. But yeah, if you are out there, just throw me a ping. I'll be at ECC, so that'll be the next big event, but just say hi. I'm pretty chill. I'm a good laugh, so we'll see. Yeah.
For sure, yeah, and I will see you there, Billy, at VTC. I also have some FOMO from not going to consensus, but sometimes you have to build, right, and
Yep.
enjoy that.
Yep.
So thank you once again for joining. It's been an amazing experience learning from you, and I hope that we really keep this collaboration moving along. And I'm excited. We're really looking forward now for the next episode. So thanks once again.
Yep. Next episode, OEV, at least 2 weeks. I know we have that date set on there, but there'll be announcements. Keep an eye out. Ping me, whichever. Or I guess let me throw the Twitter there, I guess, one more time. And if you get stuck in the example, let me know. I've been through the trenches on this thing, so if you get absolutely stuck, I've probably seen it inside out. The hard hat repo has tests, so you can test locally with the different oracles. So if you don't know how to test an oracle, that's a good example of like how to do local testing, because that's
Mm.
off chain. So a lot of stuff to learn. A lot of stuff to learn on the repos, and hopefully somebody that stumbles across this video or watching live get something out of it. If not, throw me a shout out somewhere on the internet. Very good.
For sure.
Cool.
I think I will. I think I will.
Yeah.
So, anyway, guys, thank you so much. And I see you all on the next episode. Please make sure to subscribe and follow us on socials as well. We love to connect with each one of you there. Thank you. Bye bye, guys.
Hey guys.